Dozens of contacts, radar screens lighting up aboard a U.S. destroyer in the Strait of Hormuz. Missiles, drones, fast boats, all launching simultaneously from the Iranian coastline, less than 30 miles away. The entire carrier strike group goes to battle stations in seconds. This is not a drill. This is the Strait of Hormuz, the narrowest, most dangerous choke point on the planet. 20% of the world's oil passes through here every single day. And right now, with U.S. forces conducting active operations against Iranian military infrastructure and Tehran warning it could shut the strait down entirely, one question matters more than any other. What would actually happen if Iran tried to attack a U.S. aircraft carrier here? Could they sink one? Most people assume a single well-placed missile could take out a carrier. That assumption is completely wrong. A carrier strike group is the most powerful conventional naval force ever assembled. At its center, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier the size of a small city, loaded with fighter jets, surveillance aircraft, and enough firepower to reshape a regional conflict. Around it, guided missile destroyers running the Aegis combat system, one of the most advanced missile defense platforms ever built. Below, attack submarines invisible and lethal. Above, E-2D Hawkeye radar planes extending the group's eyes hundreds of miles in every direction. This is why the United States sends carriers into dangerous waters, not just to project power, to demonstrate that it can operate there at all. But here's the part many people misunderstand. Iran's military planners aren't trying to win a conventional fight. They've studied these formations for decades. They've built an entire toolkit designed not to punch through layered defense, but to overwhelm it. The most serious threat: anti-ship cruise missiles positioned along Iran's coastline. These weapons fly low, fly fast, and some are designed to maneuver in the terminal phase, making them extremely hard to intercept. Iran also has ballistic anti-ship missiles, which approach from high altitude at extreme speed. That's a completely different interception problem than a sea-skimming cruise missile. Together, these two classes of weapon represent a genuine challenge for any naval defense system. Then there's Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, operating large numbers of fast attack boats, small, agile craft moving in coordinated swarms, launching missiles or torpedoes at close range. The doctrine isn't to sink a carrier with one boat. It's to flood the defense picture with so many simultaneous contacts that something gets through. Add drones, some for surveillance, some configured for attack, and submarines capable of operating in shallow Gulf waters, and you're looking at asymmetric naval warfare specifically engineered to complicate American options. One of the most dangerous weapons in the Strait of Hormuz is also one of the oldest: naval mines. This is perhaps the most underappreciated threat in public discussion. Mines are cheap, hard to detect, and devastatingly effective in shallow, confined waters like the Persian Gulf. Even a small number of mines seated across key shipping lanes could halt commercial traffic, spike insurance costs for tankers, and force a massive U.S. mine-clearing operation before normal shipping resumes. During the tanker war of the 1980s, mines laid in these waters damaged multiple vessels and disrupted regional trade for months. So, what about a direct missile strike? A single Iranian missile fired at a carrier strike group would almost certainly be intercepted. The Aegis destroyers are built for exactly that. Their SM-2 and SM-6 interceptors have demonstrated high reliability against these threats. But here's the myth people need to understand. One missile doesn't sink a carrier. That's what people think. Here's what actually happens. That missile gets tracked, targeted, and destroyed before it gets anywhere close. The system works, not because of one weapon, but because of layers. Radar detection, electronic jamming, interceptor missiles, fighter aircraft, close-in weapon systems. Each layer catches what the last one missed. The real danger isn't a single strike. It's a coordinated, multi-axis, simultaneous attack. Missiles from one direction, drones from another, mines already in the water, fast boats closing from a third vector. That combination begins to stress even the most advanced defense network. So here's how those first minutes would actually unfold. Minute 1. Radar operators detect inbound threats. The entire strike group accelerates through pre-planned defensive procedures. Aegis destroyers shift to automatic engagement mode. Jamming systems activate to interfere with incoming missile guidance. Close-in weapon systems, rapid-fire naval cannons, arm automatically. Battle stations across every ship in the formation. Minute 3. SM-2 and SM-6 interceptors launch against the first wave of incoming missiles. Electronic warfare assets begin degrading Iranian radar and communications. The carrier starts evasive maneuvers, slow, deliberate course changes designed to complicate targeting solutions. Minute 5. Fighter aircraft already airborne push toward the threat axis. Additional strike aircraft launch from the carrier deck. U.S. attack submarines begin targeting Iranian fast attack boat formations. Minute 10. Counterstrike planning is already underway. Strike packages are being assigned to Iranian coastal missile batteries, radar installations, and naval bases. All of this, detection, defense, and the beginning of a counterstrike in under 10 minutes. And this is where the situation becomes truly dangerous, because the battle itself may be the least dangerous part of the crisis. If Iran attacked a carrier, 3 things would happen almost immediately. First, U.S. airstrikes on coastal missile sites along Iran's entire Gulf coastline. Second, destruction of Iranian naval bases and fast attack boat staging areas. Third, suppression of Iran's radar and air defense network across the region. These wouldn't be limited strikes. The logic of carrier defense demands that you don't just absorb an attack, you eliminate the capacity to repeat it. Carrier-based aircraft, surface ships, and submarines would conduct sustained operations against Iranian military infrastructure. The question then becomes whether Iran escalates further, targeting Gulf state infrastructure, activating proxy networks across the Middle East, or attempting to close the strait entirely through mine warfare. At that point, the conflict stops being a naval engagement. It becomes a regional crisis with global consequences. Even a brief, inconclusive engagement in the strait would send oil prices surging. Major shipping companies would reroute vessels around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks to transit times. Insurance markets for Gulf tankers would seize up almost immediately. Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, would face enormous pressure from the disruption and from decisions about whether to host expanded U.S. operations. The moment a mine strikes a commercial vessel, or a missile lands close enough to one, every calculation in the shipping industry changes overnight. It's worth remembering, this isn't entirely theoretical. In April 1988, the U.S. Navy fought a one-day battle against Iranian naval forces in Operation Praying Mantis, the largest American surface engagement since the Second World War. Iran lost 2 oil platforms, 2 frigates, and multiple smaller vessels. The U.S. lost a single aircraft. That outcome reflected the fundamental asymmetry of conventional naval power that exists between the 2 countries, and still exists today. That asymmetry is exactly why Iran invested so heavily in asymmetric capabilities. Tehran's strategists drew their own lessons from 1988. The goal was never to defeat the U.S. Navy. The goal is to make the cost of operating in the Gulf high enough that Washington thinks twice. So would Iran actually do it? Would Tehran order a direct attack on a U.S. aircraft carrier? The honest answer is that it hasn't, because Iranian leadership understands exactly what would follow. An attack on a carrier wouldn't be a military incident. It would be a threshold crossing that American doctrine treats as requiring a massive, immediate response. Iran's naval infrastructure, air defense network, coastal missile batteries, all at risk within hours. But the current environment is the most dangerous it's been in years. U.S. forces are already striking Iranian military targets. Iranian proxies are under sustained pressure across the region. The margins for miscalculation are shrinking. The real question is not whether the United States could win such a battle. The real question is whether anyone could control what happens after it begins. The Strait of Hormuz has always been a place where strategic logic and tactical accident exist in uncomfortable proximity. The carrier moving through those waters represents the full weight of American military power. The coastline watching it represents a nation that has built its entire doctrine around the idea that conventional power isn't the only kind that matters. What would happen if Iran attacked a U.S. carrier there? The military answer is clear. Iran would suffer catastrophic losses. The strait would almost certainly remain open. But what happens to a region and a world in the aftermath of that answer being tested? That's the question that keeps strategists awake. If you enjoy detailed military documentaries, consider subscribing to the channel, leave a like, and explore the next video for more stories like this.